Hey guys, Otaku here. So welcome back to another deck profile. So we're going to be doing branded again. However, this is going to be post ban list and post Cyberstorm access, and even though there's no support for it, post Wild Survivors. So I'm not going to waste your time. We're just going to jump right into it. All right. So to start, we of course run the 3 Aluber Gesture of Despia and the 3 Fallen of Albaz. You can run 2 Fallen of Albaz. I just think with this build in particular, or just in general, Albaz is like a necessity to run in the deck. And if any of them get banished, or you just don't have any in the deck for Branded Fusion, the deck doesn't run as strong as it can. So having that third one in the deck, but you always somewhat want to have one in the graveyard. So having one in the deck and then one in the graveyard, and then of course having that spare at all times is just absolutely necessity. At the same time, you do run the risk of bricking on like 2 Albazes in your starting hand, but unfortunately that's the risk you kind of have to take. I then run 2 Blazing Cartesia, 1 Guiding Quem, and then we run 1 Tri-Brigade Mercurier, 1 Albion the Shrouded Dragon, and 1 Despia Tragedy. Cartesia basically is like you need to run it at 2 now. The card is just incredibly powerful, being able to just quick effect poly on your opponent's turn, but also with the effect of Quem, you can revive it from grave, and all that. And then Quem, of course, is incredibly strong, being able to just dump a card that mentions Albaz, revive monsters that mention Albaz, and just being another spellcaster in the deck for the Sanctifier Dragon. Quem is the center point of getting the puppet out in the puppet strategy. So Quem is just arguably one of the strongest cards in the deck. 1 Mercurier, I see a lot of people run 2. You can run 2. More times than not, I don't find the need to run the second one. It's just adding another brick into the deck. Of course, Shrouded Dragon being just one of the best cards in the deck, being able to just dump a Branded Speller Trap, and then, of course, draw a card. And then Tragedy, we only run the 1. Honestly, I see so little of Tragedy in my games nowadays. It's really just there to make a bad hand better, by being able to search Quem or Aluber to hopefully improve your hand. So, and then we run 1 the Bestial Lubellion, Bestial Serenir, the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and Dark Magician. Bestial Lubellion Serenir, we're just kind of straying away from a meta that requires running a bunch of Bestials, and Lubellion, just by himself can kind of just and Lubellion's a must, unfortunately, even though it is an $80 card. It is just a must in the deck. It not only gets Albion into the graveyard, but it also will allow you to activate Lost straight from the deck. Serenir, you can activate to dump Retribution, use Retribution to bring something back to your hand. But at the end of the day, Serenir isn't even really that big of a must anymore. Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, it dodged the ban list. Expulsion didn't, however, but the puppet strategy is still extremely viable in the current format with Sanctifier, and if you set up the board properly, Sanctifier is just as good as Expulsion. And then, of course, Dark Magician for our Dragoon package. As for hand traps, I'm running 2 Ghost Spell and 2 Ash. We run 2 just in case we start 1 in the hand. Ghost Spell is mainly just there to hopefully prevent Bestials from banishing the we use Ghost Spell to prevent Bestials or Called By from banishing our Gimmick Puppet, but also we use Crossout Designator, so if they want to use Bell on us, we can use Crossout Designator to negate it. And then, of course, Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is, once again, one of the better hand traps in the game. Now that the ban list has come out, Droll, you're going to see a little less Droll, but you'll still see a lot of them. But Ash Blossom will be there to prevent the mirror match, but also we run Ash Blossom for the Crossout Designator, so that way we can hopefully be a little more aggressive with our Branded Fusion plays. Moving on to spells, we of course have 3 Branded Fusion, 3 Branded Opening, 1 Branded Lost, and 1 Branded in Red. Branded Fusion, of course, you want to see this as much as possible. This is the card that makes the deck move. Branded Opening, you can use this to, again, make a bad hand better. The discard can sometimes benefit you, but also being able to search out Guiding Quem or Aluber to hopefully bridge into Branded Fusion, or get just further plays from Quem. Branded in Red, you can run this at 2. I personally wouldn't recommend it. In fact, I run Branded in Red a lot for the mirror match as well. Crossout Designator, the Branded in Red. But Branded Red gets you into Guardian Chimera, pops some stuff. Just overall, just a really good card, but I would not run it at 2. Branded Lost, of course, one of the best cards in the deck. Prevents a lot of things from stopping your fusing. Of course, not Ash, but that's why we run Crossout Designator. We then run 3 Fusion Deployment, 3 Crossout Designator, 1 Called By, 2 Tactics, a Foolish Burial, and 2 Super Polymerizations. Fusion Deployment, you mainly use this to search out Blazing Cartesia, but you can also, on Go Second, you can use it to search out Albaz, just kind of hopefully dismantle your opponent's board a little bit more. Crossout Designator is there to play a little more aggressive, so that way you have the protection. We could use this on Call by the Grave, we can use it on Ghost Spell, we can use it on Ash Blossom, we can use it on a multitude of cards for the mirror match. Triple Tactics Talent, we of course run that if we do get ashed. You can run the Nadir package instead of Crossout or instead of Talents. I just think Nadir is a little too slow, but I do run Tactics in case they do ash me, and then if I have Tactics and Crossout in my hand, then we still get to do our combos, and then we'll rip a card out of our opponent's hand. Foolish Burial, just an incredibly strong card. There's a multitude of plays. If you start Cartesia in the hand, you can activate it, put Albaz in the grave, special to Cartesia. You can use it to dump the Despia Tragedy, so you can search Quem or Luber, and then you can use it to dump Lubellion, so that way you can get more plays off Branded Fusion instead of just dumping Lubellion. Super Poly, not a lot of people are running Super Poly in Branded anymore, or at least not a lot of the pros. It's one of my favorite cards in the entire game, and I think it still has a lot of value. Incredibly broken card. It's really good for the mirror match, and in certain situations it can dismantle Cash's board. It can also dismantle Mathmex and all that. So I think Super Poly is being slept on in the current format. As for traps, I only run 2 traps in the deck. I run Branded Retribution and Infinite Impermanence. Now, I have been considering running 2 Retributions because now in the branded build, especially now that we're doing Sanctifier for the Puppet package, I have been considering possibly running Retribution at 2. I haven't experimented with it yet, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think we could get a lot of benefit off Retribution, being able to dump it, bring back one of our branded cards from the graveyard, but also being able to set it on the end phase to protect ourselves from Bestials and stuff like that. And then I run 1 Imperm primarily just for the Crossout Designator. If my opponent wants to Imperm me with a Luber on the board, Crossout Designator, and then we continue with our plays. Moving on to the extra deck, we run 2 Mirror Jade, 2 Albion, and 1 Lubellion. Basically, the only thing that's changed here is that we run 1 less Lubellion. Lubellion's just not really the play anymore. You can still bridge into it to go into Dragoon, but at the end of the day, Lubellion just a lot less value because Albion, you can get into the graveyard off of the Bestial Lubellion's effect. Mirror Jade, of course, is still insane card, your boss monster for the deck. And now that Diablosis is out of the game, you realistically don't have to worry about these cards getting knocked out as quickly, other than Kesh'tera Unicorn, of course. As for the other Albaz fusions, I run 1 Sprint and 1 Albion Sanctifier. Sprint is absolutely crazy card. You can dump it with Mirror Jade's effect and then summon Albaz on the end phase, and if you have cards in hand, you can even use it to dismantle the rest of your opponent's board. But also you can use it on your opponent. If your opponent in your standby for like Cash, they activate Shangri-La, summon a Kesh'tera. You can summon out Albaz and then use the monster as just special summon to make Sprint, and then Sprint, of course, can destroy cards on your opponent's board. Also, at the same time, you don't see a lot of Contact C, but I do still run that in case you do see Contact C. Otherwise, they just kind of lock you out from doing anything. And then, of course, Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. This card is absolutely insane. It is our Expulsion on legs, minus the ability of being able to pull from the banished pile. However, a 3k beat stick that's untargeted by card effects is absolutely crazy. And then, like I said, you can activate this to summon the puppet, or you can just activate it to get some more stuff on your board. Overall, just incredibly strong card, and if you're not running this, then realistically you're probably not running any locks like Jogan or the puppet. We also run 1 Granganol. Been considering bumping this up to 2, and I'll explain who I would cut out later. Granganol, just an incredibly strong card. This is how you bridge into the puppet, or you can even dump Albion off with this card, being able to just get more stuff into the grave. This is mainly your go-to off of Cartesia's effect, and then also being able to activate it to summon out Lulu or being able to summon Quem on your opponent's turn just brings a lot of value. For the rest of the fusions, we run 1 Rinbrum, the Striking Dragon, Masquerade, the Blazing Dragon, Despia, Queritis, Guardian Chimera, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and Garua, the Wings of Resonant Life. Rinbrum, being able to dump this off Mirror Jade's effect, and then being able to summon Albaz on your opponent's turn off of Rinbrum's effect, but also being able to just negate an extra deck monster's effect and then bounce it back to the hand or extra deck is just incredibly strong. So just having that negate on board is very strong. I run Masquerade primarily for game, but it can pressure your opponent if they it can pressure your opponent if they are activating too many effects. It's just a card that they have to get around. But I mainly just run this for timeout games. Despia Queritis, realistically, a lot of people are sleeping on the Despian Queritis. Just summoning this off of Granganol or just summoning it overall in general, like off of Super Poly if you have a Luber on board. Just incredibly strong, and then you're able to make all your opponent's monsters 0 attack, and then if they remove it from the board, whether they banish it or destroy it, being able to summon out Albaz or an Aluber just to have some blowback on the next turn, just incredibly powerful. This card has won me so many games all by itself. Guardian Chimera, primarily just the only reason we run Brandon in red is Guardian Chimera. Just very strong card, dismantles boards, draws a little extra, just to have some blowback. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, he's a bully. I don't really need to explain this card. If you don't know what Dragoon does, I don't know where you've been. And then Garua, just one of our Super Poly targets, but we can dump this off with the Granganol if we're absolutely desperate and we want to get greedy for that draw. We can dump this for the Granganol effect. But then as for the last extra deck slot, we are running 1 Despian Lulu Lilith. If I was going to run another Granganol, I would cut Lulu. Realistically, I don't ever see plays. I don't ever see the necessary play to dump Lulu. I think out of like 1 out of 10 games is the only time I ever actually use Lulu but to its fullest. Just being synchro summoning in general in this deck is just really difficult. You can summon this off of Granganol, but 9 times out of 10 it's never really the play. And then dumping this off of with Granganol's effect and being able to just summon out like Cartesia or Quem is strong, but it's never usually necessary. So like I said, if I was going to add another Granganol, I would cut the Lulu. And then for the side deck, I run 1 Branded Banishment. It's basically just a trap Super Poly that banishes the materials. I really only run this for like the mirror match, but there are random moments where this still is useful. It's more of a personal choice. I don't see anyone siding this in. I don't really even see anyone running this anymore. I just really like this card, and it has won me some games. Just comes in clutch when you actually have it, being able to set that off with the Albion end phase effect. I then run 2 Tikaboos. There can be only 1. This card is just incredibly strong, being able to it shuts down cash. It shuts down other like rogue decks like Blackwing and all that. It shuts down Goaty. This card is just incredibly strong, and Branded plays around it easily. We run 3 Droll and Lockbird. Droll, it mainly just shuts down a lot of the tier 1 decks. Pearly's going to struggle right now because of Delicious Memory getting limited, and Super Heavy is going to struggle a little bit with the Scarecrow getting banned, but I still think the decks are very prevalent, and Droll will shut them down. But unlike pre-ban list, Droll is no longer a necessity for the main deck. Mainly just side it in when you're going against those 2 decks. I side it in for Cash because Cash does a lot of searching, but overall, I would not recommend main decking Droll anymore. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. This is mainly for the Labyrinth matchup, but Cosmic can come in handy in multiple scenarios. I've used it against Cash to banish Birth, because Birth is incredibly annoying. But this is mainly for back row like Trap Tricks and Trap Tricks and Labyrinth. We then run 1 Jinzo and 2 Bestial Mags. Jinzo, if we are going against back row deck like Lab and Trap Tricks, we'll just get rid of the puppet and summon out Jinzo instead. It amazes me that they didn't just like hit Albion Sanctifier, but realistically, he's a lot more manageable to deal with than Expulsion. But Jinzo just still incredibly strong, being able to shut down your opponent's entire deck if they are playing Trap Tricks or Labyrinth just makes it. I've played a couple of Labyrinth players with Jinzo, and they scooped the moment he hit the board. Bestial Mag, this is also for the mirror match. If your opponent's doing like Raw's Disciple, Jogan, the Puppet, then you would activate, the Bestial to get it out of the graveyard. But also, you can use this to search Lubellion or even Albaz to your hand on the end phase. So Mag is still really good. I don't run Druis anymore. I think Druis was kind of the weaker option here, and then Mag is just incredibly good. And then for the finale, we have 2 Radians and 1 Santa Claus. Personally, I'd be running 3 Santa Claus, or heck, even 2. I think, honestly, running both, in whatever ratio you choose, I think running both is very beneficial. Multiple times at locals, I have dismantled a board by having both Santa Claus and Radiating in my hand, because neither restricts the other from being used. So just very strong, and it takes down towers no problem. All right, so we're gonna do a test hand real quick. I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video, but this is a 42 card deck. But we're going to do a test hand just to see where this goes. When we do the test hands in these videos, we of course assume that we are going first and our opponent has no disruption in their hand. So just kind of keep that in mind and take these plays with a grain of salt, because it's not going to work like this every time. So we of course draw our 5 cards, and right out the gate we have the Branded Opening and a Luber, incredibly strong. Oh, and the Lost. So we of course would start by activating Branded Lost, and most likely we would just summon a Luber, Jester of Despia, activating his effect to search out Branded Fusion. We would then go Branded Opening, dumping the Ghost Bell to summon out Guiding Quem. And then we would go Branded Fusion. Now, if they did have the Ash, we do have the Called By here for it. But like I said, this is just the assumption that they don't have any interruption whatsoever. So we'd go the Branded Fusion, and we would dump the... Well, sorry, actually, off of Guiding Quem, we of course would activate its effect on Special Summon to dump the Cartesia. Then we would go Branded Fusion for the Lubellion and the Albaz to the grave to summon out the Albion. We would then activate Albion, would be Chainlink 1, Lost would be Chainlink 2. Lost would search out the Mercurier, wherever it's at in the deck here, top of the deck, of course. So we'd search Mercurier off Lost, and then Albion would, actually be Chainlink 1, Albion, Chainlink 2, Lost, Chainlink 3, Quem. Sorry, I'm getting this all messed up here. So Quem would, of course, revive Cartesia. Albion would banish Quem, and Albaz to summon out the Sanctifier. And then Cartesia would fuse with a Luber to make the Granganol. Granganol effect would then dump the Puppet. And then we would, for the end phase effect, we would activate the Lubellion from grave to tribute Albion. Tribute Albion. So then we would set Called by the Grave, and we would move to end phase. So in the end phase, we're not going to activate Cartesia because we want it in the graveyard for the Sanctifier effect. So we just activate Albion's effect here to set the Branded Retribution. And that would be the end of our turn. So our opponent would go into draw phase. We would activate Albion's effect, targeting the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare and the Blazing Cartesia. Now, if our opponent activates Ghost Spell, we have the Mercurier. If our opponent activates the Bestials, we have Branded Retribution. We would tribute Albion, of course. And then we would negate and destroy the Bestial. The only thing here that would stop this is if our opponent had Called by the Grave. That was the only thing that would stop us here. I have had hands that the board ended exactly like this, except instead of the Called by, we would have Cross Out. That's basically some of the boards I've had, so I cross outed their Called by. But yeah, that's still the puppet strategy. And then we end on a Cartesia, and then Cartesia, of course, can do its thing and summon out something bigger. And so, yeah, that is it for the branded deck profile, post ban list and post Cyberstorm access. Let me know what you guys think down below. I know that usually these like meta deck profiles don't usually do the best because everyone sees all these people do these deck profiles, but again, let me know in the comments down below what you think, and let me know what kind of deck profile you'd like to see next. I have a specific deck cooking here real soon, emphasis on the word cooking, yeah, so stay tuned. Don't forget to leave a like down below, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.